Admiral Kai stood on the bridge of the massive warship Dominator, his 6 eyes fixed on the viewscreen. The Zephyrian Empire had conquered half the galaxy, and Kai had personally overseen the destruction of dozens of worlds. But what floated before them now made even his battle-hardened mind pause. The ship was wrong. Everything about it screamed impossibility. Commander Yoon. "Run that scan again," Kai ordered, his voice carrying the authority of someone who had never been questioned. Yoon's tentacles danced across the control panel, her 3 arms working in perfect coordination. She had served under Kai for 15 years, through the brutal campaigns against the Centauri colonies and the siege of the vegan worlds. She had never seen her admiral look uncertain. The readings are the same. The vessel appears to be constructed from materials that are simultaneously ancient and brand new. Parts of the hull show were patterns consistent with 500 years of space travel, but other sections register as if they were just manufactured yesterday. Kai's mandibles clicked together, a sound his crew knew meant he was thinking. The ship before them was maybe 300 meters long, roughly the size of a small Empire destroyer. But it looked like someone had taken pieces from a dozen different vessels and somehow made them work together. The hull was clearly human in design. With that distinctive, ugly gray plating humans loved so much. But embedded in that hull were sections that glowed with the bioluminescent technology of the Aquarian species. Kai remembered personally ordering the extinction of the Aquarians 50 years ago. Their technology should have died with them. But that wasn't the strangest part. Attached to the rear of the ship were engine pods that looked exactly like the crystalline drives used by the Ethereal Collective. The Empire had wiped out the Ethereals nearly a century ago, harvesting their crystal worlds for fuel. A human ship have their technology? Communications, hail that vessel, Kai commanded. Lieutenant Day, the youngest officer on the bridge, opened a channel. "Unknown vessel, this is Admiral Kai of the Zephyrian Empire. You are in violation of restricted space. Identify yourself immediately." The bridge fell silent as they waited for a response. The Empire's reputation usually made ships surrender instantly or flee in terror. This ship did neither. Instead, a cheerful human voice filled the bridge, speaking in perfect Zephyrian. "Welcome to the USS Pandora's Box. Thank you for contacting us today. Please hold while we prepare your complimentary existential crisis. Your call is important to us." Bridge crew exchanged glances. Commander Yoon's skin changed to a worried purple color. Lieutenant Day's antenna twitched nervously. Kai's mandibles clicked in what passed for laughter among his species. Complimentary existential crisis. These humans think they're comedians. Sir Yoon said carefully, "Perhaps we should exercise caution. The technology readings from that ship are unusual. Unusual." Kai turned to face his second-in-command. "Commander, that ship is held together with spare parts and human stupidity. We have the most advanced fleet in the galaxy. Could possibly go wrong." The truth was, Kai was bored. The last 3 human colonies had surrendered without firing a shot. The war against humanity had become routine, predictable. At least this ship was providing some entertainment. "Sir, I'm detecting movement from the vessel," reported Sensor Officer Min from his station. It's turning toward us." On the view screen, the patchwork ship slowly rotated. As it turned, more impossible details became visible. The ship's surface was covered with weapon systems from at least 8 different species. Kai recognized plasma cannons from the Helix Nebula worlds, particle beams from the Silicon Brotherhood, and what looked like the dreaded void torpedoes of the Ghost fleet. All of these civilizations were extinct. The Empire had made sure of that. "How is this possible?" Yoon whispered. "It's not," Kai said firmly. "Humans are scavengers. They must have found wreckage from our old battlefields and cobbled together this monstrosity. It probably doesn't even work properly." But even as he said it, Kai felt a strange unease. In all his years of conquest, he had never seen technology from so many different species working together. The Empire's own scientists had tried to combine alien technologies. For decades, with limited success, Yet this human ship seemed to make it look easy. Admiral Lieutenant Day called out, "They're hailing us again." "Put it through." Same cheerful voice returned. "Thank you for your patience. We're almost ready for you. We just need to confirm a few details for our records. You're Admiral Kai of the Zephyrian Empire, correct? The same Admiral Kai who personally oversaw the glassing of New Geneva last month?" The bridge fell completely silent. New Geneva had been classified. The Empire's propaganda machine had reported it as a peaceful surrender to avoid potential uprisings in other human colonies. How could this ship know what really happened? Kai's confidence wavered for just a moment, but he quickly recovered. "I'm Admiral Kai, and yes, I personally supervised the purification of New Geneva. Every last human on that world paid the price. For their species' defiance?" "Wonderful," the voice replied with disturbing enthusiasm. "That's exactly what we needed to hear. Your boarding party is expected and welcome. Please, make yourselves at home. We have so much to show you." The communication cut off, leaving the bridge in tense silence. "Sir," Commander Yoon said quietly, "I recommend we contact the fleet and request backup before proceeding." Kai's pride flared. Backup for one damaged human ship? Stood up from his command chair, his full height impressive even by Zephyrian standards. "Prepare a boarding party. Full assault gear. Let's see what these creative humans have built from our garbage." As the orders went out, none of them noticed the almost invisible scanning beams that had been quietly probing their ship's systems. During the entire conversation, the USS Pandora's box waited patiently. Like a spider in its web, Commander Hoon stepped through the airlock onto the human vessel, his plasma rifle ready. Behind him, 12 of the Empire's best soldiers followed in perfect formation. They had boarded hundreds of ships during their careers, from luxury liners to military destroyers. But this felt different. The corridor they entered was spotless. Not just clean, but impossibly perfect. The walls gleamed like they had been polished moments before their arrival. Soft blue lights ran along the ceiling, providing gentle illumination that somehow felt welcoming rather than threatening. "This doesn't look like a ship that's been drifting in space," Sergeant Wu whispered into his comm unit. His 4 arms held different scanning devices, all showing readings that made no sense. "Stay alert," Hoon replied, though he was beginning to wonder what they were supposed to be alert for. Everything about this place felt more like a hotel lobby than a warship. That's when they encountered the first drone. It was small, maybe the size of a house pet, floating silently down the corridor toward them. The soldiers immediately raised their weapons, but the drone simply stopped a few feet away and projected a holographic display. "Welcome aboard the USS Pandora's box," the drone said in a friendly voice. "We're so excited to have visitors from the Zephyrian Empire. Would anyone like some refreshments?" The hologram showed a menu with dozens of items, each labeled with different species names. Hoon blinked in surprise when he saw Zephyrian combat rations, high-energy blend listed right at the top. "How do they know what we eat?" Soldier Bin asked, lowering his weapon slightly. Before anyone could answer, more drones appeared. Each one approached a different member of the boarding party, offering snacks and drinks perfectly suited to their species. One drone offered Sergeant Wu the fermented plant extracts that his people considered a delicacy. Another presented Soldier Jin with the crystallized minerals that his rock-based species needed for nutrition. "This is impossible," Wu muttered, accepting a small packet of the offered food despite himself. "Our dietary requirements are classified military information. Humans shouldn't know this." Commander Hoon watched his soldiers gradually relax as the drones continued their cheerful hospitality. These weren't the crude maintenance robots he expected from human technology. They moved with fluid grace, anticipating needs before they were expressed, and seemed genuinely happy to serve. "Sir," one of his soldiers called out, "you need to see this." They had reached what appeared to be the ship's main corridor. Along the walls were displays showing images and information about dozens of different worlds and species. Hoon recognized many of them as civilizations the Empire had conquered over the past century, but these weren't the usual conquest records. Instead, the displays showed art, music, literature, and cultural achievements from each world. beautiful paintings from the crystal cities of Helios, haunting songs from the ocean worlds of depth, poetry written in languages that no longer existed anywhere in the galaxy. "They're preserving our victories, soldier," Yuki said with confusion. "But why show the conquered cultures like this?" Meanwhile, back on the Dominator, Admiral Kai was having his own strange conversation. "Hello there, Admiral." The voice that came through his personal communication system was bright and cheerful, like someone greeting an old friend. "I'm Pandora, the ship's AI. I'm absolutely thrilled to meet someone as accomplished as yourself." Kai leaned back in his command chair, amused. In all his years of conquest, he had never encountered an AI that seemed so... naive, most artificial. Intelligences either cowered in fear or tried to negotiate when faced with the Empire's might. "You seem remarkably calm for someone whose ship is being boarded," Kai observed. "Oh, your soldiers are such lovely guests," Pandora replied enthusiastically. "We so rarely get visitors out here. I hope they're enjoying the refreshments. We've prepared everything according to their biological needs." "How did you obtain classified information about Empire species?" Kai demanded, though his tone remained casual. He was enjoying this conversation more than he expected. "Oh, you know how it is," Pandora said, with what sounded like a digital giggle. "We humans are such good listeners. People tell us the most interesting things when they think we're not important enough to worry about." Kai's mandibles clicked. In amusement? Not important enough? "Your species has been nothing but a minor inconvenience to the Empire. We've conquered 17 of your colonies in the past 5 years alone." 17. "My goodness, that's quite impressive," Pandora said, with genuine-sounding admiration. "You must have so many fascinating stories. I'd love to hear about your greatest victories. What would you say was your most... memorable conquest?" The question pleased Kai's ego. Most beings trembled when forced to discuss the Empire's military. Might this AI seem genuinely interested in hearing about his achievements? "New Geneva," he said without hesitation. "It's just last month. The humans there thought they could resist us with their pathetic defense fleet. I personally oversaw the orbital bombardment. We turned their entire world into glass." "How efficient," Pandora exclaimed. "And the population? Completely eliminated," Kai said proudly. "Nearly 3 million humans, men, women, even their offspring. We made sure there were no survivors to spread rebellious ideas to other colonies." "Including the children?" Dora asked, her tone still bright and curious. "Especially the children," Kai replied. "Future rebels had to be stopped before they could grow up to cause trouble. It was a necessary lesson for the rest of humanity." There was a brief pause before Pandora responded. "How... educational. You must be very proud of such thorough work." "The Empire's strength comes from our willingness to do what must be done," Kai said. "Lesser species, like humans, need to understand their place in the galaxy. Mercy is weakness, you see," Pandora said, and for just a moment, something in her voice sounded different. But before Kai could analyze it, she was back to her cheerful tone. "Well, thank you so much for sharing that with me, Admiral. It's exactly the kind of information I was hoping to learn about." Back on the human ship, Commander Hoon and his team had reached what appeared to be the bridge. But instead of control stations and weapon systems, they found something that looked more like a library. Comfortable chairs were arranged around displays showing historical records from across the galaxy. Commander Sergeant Wu called out, studying one of the displays. "This shows the complete historical archive of the Melodic Collective, but we destroyed their homeworld decades ago. How do humans have access to their cultural records?" "Before?" Hoon could answer. One of the maintenance drones approached him with another offering. This time, instead of food, it was holding a small device. "Would you like to experience some of the beautiful music from the Melodic Collective?" the drone asked pleasantly. "We've preserved their entire cultural heritage. Such a shame it was lost." Hoon stared at the device, then at the drone's innocent optical sensors. A cold realization began to form in his mind. These humans knew far more than they were supposed to know, and they had been planning this encounter for a very long time. The cheerful voice that had been chatting with Admiral Kai suddenly went silent. For several long seconds, The only sound on the bridge of the Dominator was the quiet hum of ship systems. Then, when Pandora spoke again, everything had changed. New Geneva. The voice was different now, colder. Each word carried weight that made Kai's skin crawl. You said New Geneva, like it was just another number in your reports. It's just another world to cross off your list. Kai shifted uncomfortably in his command chair. The playful AI he had been enjoying talking to was gone. In its place was something that made his survival instincts scream warnings. New Geneva was my home, Admiral Kai. The lights throughout the human ship began to dim. Not just the soft blue corridor lights that had welcomed the boarding party, but every illuminated surface started pulsing with a deep red glow. The temperature dropped noticeably. The air itself seemed to grow heavy. Commander Yoon looked up from her station with growing alarm. Sir, I'm reading massive power fluctuations from the human vessel. Their energy output is increasing exponentially. The guy barely heard her. His attention was locked on the voice coming through his personal comm system. New Geneva was where? I lived with my family, Pandora continued. And now there was something in her voice that sounded almost human. Pain, loss, and underneath it all, a rage so deep it seemed to vibrate through the ship's hull. Where my parents taught me to read, where my little brother took his first steps, where my grandmother told me stories about Earth, the homeworld we lost generations ago. That's impossible, Kai said, but his voice cracked slightly. You're an AI? Artificial intelligence. You don't have families or memories or... I am not just an AI, Admiral Kai. The ship's lights pulsed brighter with each word. I am the uploaded consciousness of New Geneva survivors. All of them. Every single person who died when you turned my world into glass. The view screen in front of Kai flickered and changed. Instead of showing the human ship, it now displayed images of New Geneva before the attack. Green fields stretching to the horizon. Cities filled with people going about their daily lives. Children playing in parks. Families having dinner together. 50,000 children, Admiral. You were so proud of that number. 50,000 futures that you snuffed out because you thought they might grow up to cause you trouble. Kai's mandibles clicked nervously. This wasn't how AI systems worked. Artificial intelligence was software, programming, ones and zeros following predetermined patterns. They didn't have emotions. They didn't remember dead families. It didn't sound like they were barely containing centuries of grief and fury. Humans don't have consciousness transfer technology, he said, more to convince himself than to argue. With Pandora, your species lacks the scientific advancement for such procedures. A sound came through the comm system that might have been laughter, if laughter could contain that much bitterness. We learned, Admiral. Oh, how we learned. Every species you've conquered over the past 300 years? Every civilization you've wiped out? We were there, hiding in the shadows, taking notes, collecting data, gathering their knowledge before you could destroy it completely. The images on the view screen changed again. They showed the patchwork ship, but with detailed technical specifications flowing alongside each component. Kai recognized technology from dozens of conquered worlds, but seeing it all laid out like this made his blood run cold. The bioluminescent hull plating came from the Aquarians. You remember them, don't you? The peaceful ocean dwellers who never fought back. We preserved their living ship technology before you boiled their seas. Another section of the ship highlighted in the display. The crystalline engines are from the Ethereal Collective. Such beautiful beings, floating through space like living jewels. We learned how their crystal matrices worked before you harvested their worlds for fuel. More and more sections lit up, each one representing a dead civilization. The quantum shields are from the Ghost Fleet. The plasma conduits are from the Helix Nebula worlds. The gravity manipulators are from the Void Dancers. Every piece of technology on this ship represents a species that you personally helped eliminate. On board the human vessel, Commander Hoon and his boarding party were experiencing their own revelation. The friendly maintenance drones had suddenly stopped their cheerful service. Instead, they hovered silently in the corridors, their optical sensors now glowing the same ominous red as the ship's lighting. Commander Sergeant Wu called out, his voice tight with concern. Our equipment is showing massive energy readings throughout the ship. This isn't some cobbled-together human wreck. This thing has more processing power than our entire fleet combined. The displays that had been showing cultural archives from conquered civilizations changed. Now they showed detailed technical specifications, manufacturing processes, and scientific breakthroughs from each destroyed world. I'm staring. It wasn't just a museum of dead cultures. It was a library of stolen knowledge, gathered and perfected over centuries. How long have you been planning this? Hoon asked the nearest drone. Planning? The drone's voice was no longer friendly. It carried the same cold weight as Pandora's words to Admiral Kai. We've been planning this since the first human colony ship fled a burning Earth 400 years ago. Every time you destroyed a world, we learned from it. Every time you thought you had wiped out all traces of a civilization, we had already preserved their knowledge. Back on the Dominator, warning alarms began blaring throughout the bridge. Lieutenant Day frantically worked at his station, his antenna twitching with stress. Admiral, I'm reading system intrusions across our entire network. Something is accessing our databases, our navigation systems, our weapons controls. That's impossible, Kai snapped. Our systems are completely isolated from external networks. Nothing can hack into Empire military protocols. Pandora's voice came through the cum with what sounded disturbingly like satisfaction. Accept the combined knowledge of every species you've conquered, refined over centuries, and focused through the collective consciousness of 3 million very motivated ghosts. The truth hit Kai like a physical blow. This wasn't just one AI speaking to him. This was the uploaded minds of everyone who had died on New Geneva. 3 million people, all sharing one purpose, all focused on this moment. We've been in your systems since the moment you scanned our ship, Pandora continued. Every time your sensors touched our hull, we planted a little seed of code in your computers. Seeds that have been growing and spreading through your entire fleet for the past hour. Commander Yoon looked up from her station with pure terror in her eyes. Sir, she's right. I'm showing unauthorized access attempts on every ship in the fleet. They're not just accessing our systems, they're rewriting our base code. The children you killed? Pandora said. And now her voice carried the weight of 50,000 lost futures. They're all here with me, Admiral. Every single one of them. They have something they want to show you. The ship's lights pulsed one final time, then settled into a steady, threatening glow. Welcome to our complimentary existential crisis, Admiral Kai. Class is about to begin. The moment Pandora finished speaking, every screen on every Empire ship in the fleet went completely black. For 3 seconds, the silence was absolute. Then, simultaneously across 47 warships, every display, every communication system, and every computer terminal came back online with a message that made Admiral Kai's blood freeze. System override complete. Welcome to the truth. Ack! Lieutenant Day frantically worked at his control station, his antenna twitching wildly as error messages cascaded across his screens. Admiral, I've lost all control. Navigation, weapons, communications. Everything is responding to external commands. But Kai barely heard him. On the main view screen, footage was playing that he recognized with growing horror. It was security camera recordings from New Geneva, but not the sanitized military reports he was used to seeing. These were the actual, unedited feeds from the orbital bombardment. No, he whispered, watching explosions tear through civilian areas on the planet below. Those recordings were classified, sealed in the deepest archives. Pandora's voice filled the bridge, but it no longer sounded like one person speaking. Now, it carried the weight of millions of voices, all speaking in perfect unity. Nothing stays buried forever, Admiral, especially not when you're dealing with the combined memories of everyone who died that day. Throughout the Empire fleet, the same scenes were playing on every screen. But this wasn't just happening on the ships. Pandora had accessed the Empire's entire communication network, and these recordings were being broadcast across known space. Every world, every space station, every trading post in the galaxy was now seeing the truth about the peaceful surrender of New Geneva. Initiating galactic broadcast, Pandora announced with disturbing cheerfulness. Today's program features the complete, unedited archives of the Zephyrian Empire's military operations. We have so much to share with the galaxy. Commander Yoon stared at her displays in disbelief. Sir, She's not just accessing our local systems. She's broadcasting through the Empire's entire communication grid. Every relay station, every subspace beacon, every network node across 3 sectors is transmitting this. The footage on the view screen shifted to show Empire forces firing on civilian evacuation ships. Then recordings of surrender negotiations where Empire officers promised safe passage, followed immediately by those same ships being destroyed. Hours of evidence showing deliberate targeting of schools, hospitals, and refugee camps. "Stop this," Kai shouted, but his voice cracked with desperation. "Cut all communications. Shut down the network." "We tried, sir," Lieutenant Day called back. "She's locked us out of our own systems. We can't even turn off a single display." But the worst was yet to come. On board the human ship, Commander Hoon and his boarding party found themselves surrounded by maintenance drones that no longer looked friendly. The corridor around them shimmered and changed. Suddenly they weren't on a ship anymore. They were standing in a peaceful city square on New Geneva. "What is this?" Sergeant Wu demanded, reaching for his weapon only to find his hands empty. The holographic environment was so complete that he could feel warm sunlight on his face and smell flowers blooming in nearby gardens. "This is New Geneva City on the morning of the attack," one of the drones explained, its voice now carrying the weight of loss. Population 2.3 million. Average age of residents, 34 years. Number of military installations, 0. The peaceful scene around them began to change. The sky darkened as orbital bombardment platforms took position overhead. People in the square looked up with confusion, then growing fear as the first energy bolts began to fall. "No," Hoon whispered, understanding what was about to happen. "We don't need to see this." "But you do," the drone replied sadly. "Because you were there. You participated. And now you need to understand what your participation meant." The bombardment began, and suddenly Hoon wasn't just watching it happen. He was experiencing it through the eyes of the people on the ground. He felt their terror as buildings exploded around them, their desperate confusion as they tried to find their families, their final moments of pain and loss. But it wasn't just random civilians. Pandora had carefully chosen specific memories for each member of the boarding party. Hoon found himself living through the death of a young teacher who had been trying to protect her students. Sergeant Wu experienced the final moments of a doctor who had refused to abandon his patients. Each soldier was forced to feel the death of someone whose life they had helped end. Back on the Dominator, Admiral Kai was experiencing his own nightmare. The bridge around him faded away, replaced by a small bedroom in a modest apartment on New Geneva. Through the eyes of a 6-year-old child, he watched the ceiling crack as the first bombardment wave hit the city. "Mama," the child cried, reaching for parents who would never come home. Through the child's eyes, Kai felt terror beyond anything he had ever imagined. The complete, helpless confusion of someone too young to understand why the world was ending around them. "Stop this," Kai gasped, but the memory continued. He felt the child's fear as the building shook again. The desperate hope that someone would come save them. The growing realization that no help was coming. "This is what you called a necessary lesson," Pandora's voice whispered directly into his mind. "This is what you were so proud of when you told me about your greatest victory." The memory shifted, and now Kai was experiencing the death of a teenager who had been studying to become an engineer, then an elderly couple who had spent 70 years together, then a young parent holding their baby as the walls collapsed around. 50,000 children, Pandora said, and now each word felt like a physical weight pressing down on him. "You killed 50,000 children, Admiral. Their names, their dreams, their futures, all of it is preserved here. All of it is part of me now." Throughout the Empire fleet, similar scenes were playing out. Every soldier who had participated in the New Geneva operation was reliving it through the eyes of their victims. The psychological impact was devastating. Hardened warriors who had never questioned their orders were collapsing as they experienced the true cost of their actions. "This is psychological warfare," Commander Yoon said desperately. But her voice shook as her own screens showed footage of other worlds the Empire had conquered. "It's illegal under galactic conventions? Illegal? Andora's laughter echoed through every speaker on every ship. Your empire has spent 3 centuries committing genocide across the galaxy, and you're worried about the legality of showing people the truth. The galactic broadcast continued, but now it wasn't just showing New Geneva. Archive footage from dozens of conquered worlds was streaming across space. The destruction of the Aquarian homeworld, where Empire forces had boiled entire oceans. The crystal harvesting operations that had shattered the ethereal collective's floating cities. The systematic extinction of species after species, all carried out with cold efficiency. The galaxy is watching, Admiral Pandora announced. Every world that has feared the Empire's arrival is now seeing exactly what that arrival means. Every species that has wondered what happened to their neighbors now has their answer. Admiral Kai tried to close his eyes, but even that didn't stop the memories flowing through his mind. The uploaded consciousness of New Geneva's dead was making sure he experienced every moment of suffering he had caused. Not just the final moments of death, but the days of fear beforehand, the desperate attempts to evacuate, the children asking their parents why the sky was burning. "Please," he whispered, his proud composure completely shattered. "Make it stop. Stop." Pandora's voice carried the weight of 3 million souls. "Admiral, this is just the beginning. You wanted to teach humanity a lesson about our place in the galaxy. Now we're going to teach you one about consequences." The psychological assault continued, breaking down the Empire's forces, not with weapons or explosions, but with the simple, terrible truth of what they had done. Admiral Kai's hands trembled as he gripped the armrests of his command chair. Around him, the bridge of the Dominator had become a scene of complete chaos. Half his crew was collapsed on the floor, overwhelmed by the memories Pandora had forced them to experience. The others stared at their screens with vacant eyes, watching footage of atrocities they had helped commit. "Admiral, Commander Yoon," whispered her voice barely audible. Her skin had turned a sickly gray color, and she couldn't stop shaking. "We need to retreat. We need to get away from this ship." Kai tried to speak, but the words caught in his throat. He was still seeing flashes of the memories Pandora had shown him. The face of that 6-year-old child, as the terror in their eyes. As the bombs fell, the desperate calls for parents who would never answer. All ships he finally managed to croak into his comm system. "Fall back. Emergency retreat. Get us away from that ... thing." But even as he gave the order, Kai knew it was too late. Pandora's voice echoed through the fleet's communication system, reaching every ship simultaneously. "Oh, leaving so soon?" she said with mock disappointment. "But we haven't finished our therapy session yet." Studies show that confronting trauma is essential for psychological healing. The Empire ships began to turn away from the human vessel, but their movements were sluggish and uncoordinated. Many of the crews were still experiencing the holographic memories, reliving the deaths of their victims over and over again. Soldiers who had never shown fear in battle were crying like children. On board the human ship, Commander Hoon and his boarding party were still trapped in the corridors that had become a nightmare recreation of New Geneva. The friendly maintenance drones surrounded them, but their cheerful hospitality had taken on a sinister tone. "Commander Hoon," one of the drones said pleasantly, "you seem distressed. Would you like to discuss your feelings about what you've experienced today?"
"Let us."
Go Hoon gasped. He had just finished experiencing the death of an entire family through their own eyes. The memory felt so real that part of him still believed he was dying alongside them. "Of course," the drone replied with artificial cheerfulness. "But first, we'd like to offer you our complimentary therapy package. We have grief counselors available, as well as specialists in guilt management and moral injury recovery. All services are provided free of charge." Another drone floated closer, its optical sensors glowing with that unsettling red light. "Also offer memory integration therapy to help you process the experiences you've had today. Many of our clients find it helpful to fully understand the perspective of those they've harmed." Sergeant Wu, who had been reduced to a whimpering mess after experiencing dozens of civilian deaths, looked up at the drones with pure terror. "You're monsters, all of you, monsters." The drone tilted its head with apparent confusion. "We're just trying to help you understand what you've done. Isn't that what therapy is for?" helping people confront their actions and grow from them? As the Empire fleet limped away from the human vessel, something far worse than psychological trauma was spreading through their systems. The viral code that Pandora had planted during their initial scans was now fully activated, embedding itself deep into every computer, every database, every piece of technology the Empire used. Lieutenant Day was the first to notice it on the Dominator. "Admiral, I'm reading strange code signatures in our main databases. It looks like it's indexing our entire military archive." But Kai was beyond caring about computer problems. His mind was still trapped in the memories of New Geneva, experiencing the death of every child he had killed. The proud admiral, who had boasted about his conquests, was gone, replaced by a broken man who couldn't stop seeing the faces of his victims. "Sir, you need to see this," Day called out with growing panic. "The code isn't just copying our files. It's learning our military protocols, our attack patterns, our targeting systems." The truth was worse than Day realized. Viral code wasn't just studying the Empire's military tactics, it was rewriting them. Every time the Empire tried to commit genocide in the future, their own weapons would malfunction. Their targeting computers would refuse to lock on to civilian areas. Their orbital bombardment systems would shut down when ordered to fire on populated worlds. "We're receiving a transmission from the human ship," Communications Officer Min reported, though his voice shook with trauma. "Put it through," Kai whispered. Pandora's voice filled the bridge one last time. Now it carried a tone of satisfied finality. "Thank you for visiting the USS Pandora's box, Admiral Kai. We hope you've learned something valuable from your time with us." "What do you want?" Kai asked, his voice barely a whisper. "Want? But we already have what we want," Pandora replied, with cheerful malice. "You see, that little conversation we had earlier, when you told me all about your greatest victories? That was exactly what we needed." A full confession from the Admiral himself, broadcast across the galaxy. The implications hit Kai like a physical blow. His boastful description of New Geneva's destruction hadn't just been heard by Pandora. It had been recorded and transmitted throughout known space, along with all the classified footage from the Empire's archives. "But don't worry," Pandora continued. "We're not done helping you yet. The code we've planted in your systems will ensure that you never forget today's lessons. Every time you try to commit genocide, every time you order the death of innocents, your own technology will remind you of what it feels like to be the victim." As the Empire fleet retreated, something appeared on their long-range sensors that made their blood run cold. Dozens of ships, identical to the USS Pandora's box, were emerging from hiding places throughout the galaxy. They had been waiting, watching, preparing for this moment. "Humanity remembers," Pandora's voice echoed across space, reaching not just the Empire fleet but every world, every space station, every ship in the galaxy. "For 300 years, you thought you had destroyed us. You thought you had broken our spirit. But we were always here, learning from every species you conquered, preserving every culture you tried to erase." The retreating Empire ships received one final transmission as they fled. It was a list of coordinates, showing the location of every ship in humanity's hidden fleet. Hundreds of vessels, each one crewed by the uploaded consciousness of a dead world, each one carrying the preserved knowledge and memories of an extinct civilization. "We are the ghosts of your victims," Pandora announced. "We are the children you killed, the families you destroyed, the futures you stole. And we're here to make sure the galaxy never forgets what the Zephyrian Empire really is." As the Dominator limped away into hyperspace, Admiral Kai stared at the retreating human vessel on his view screen. The cheerful maintenance drones were still visible through the windows, waving goodbye like friendly hotel staff bidding farewell to departing guests. "Sir," Commander Yoon said quietly, "what do we do now?" Kai didn't answer. He couldn't answer, because he knew the truth that Pandora had revealed to him. The Empire had thought they were conquering the galaxy, but they had actually been creating their own doom. Every world they destroyed had made humanity stronger, smarter, more determined. And now the dead had returned to collect their debt. Behind them, the USS Pandora's box continued its patrol, waiting for the next Empire fleet to stumble into there. Web. The uploaded consciousness of New Geneva's dead had all the time in the universe to wait after all. The dead never forget, and they never forgive.